Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Season 5 is here, and of course, that means some buffs and nerfs to some of your favorite weapons. But that brings up the question, what is gonna be the meta for this season? Tell me! I am here to answer that question for you today, as I'm bringing you my top 5 best long-range meta options for this season of Warzone. If you guys end up enjoying the video, make sure you're smacking that like button and hitting the subscribe button so you can get notified when I drop videos just like this one in the future. All right, guys, let's jump into our first loadout. For our first loadout, we're gonna be taking a look at the Tempest Razorback Assault Rifle. This thing was buffed in the last update, Season 4.5, and since then has been a top option in Warzone, especially in Vondel and Ashika Island. For our first attachment, we're gonna run the Komodo Heavy Muzzle. This is gonna give us some horizontal recoil control. For the tunings for the muzzle, we're gonna go all the way up on the recoil stabilization and about 0.15 for the recoil control down there on the bottom. For our next attachment, we're gonna head over to barrels. We're gonna throw on the 18-inch barrel, which is gonna help us with our damage range, bullet velocity, and it even gives us a little bit of movement speed. For the tunings on the barrel, we're going all the way up on the recoil steadiness and all the way to the right for our damage range. Next, we're over to underbarrel grips, where we're gonna throw on the DM Proto Grip. This grip is specific to the Razorback, and you can find it all the way at the end of the underbarrel attachments. Of course, throwing on this underbarrel is gonna help us a lot with aiming stability and recoil control. For the tunings on the underbarrel, we're gonna go to positive 0.35 on the left and go to positive 0.25 on the bottom, helping us out with our recoil and aiming stability even more. Of course, for our magazine, we're gonna wanna get the highest amount of bullets that we can, since this gun has a super high fire rate, so we're throwing on these 60-round mags. And lastly, for our optic, I like to still throw the aim OP on this thing, since it's one of my favorite optics in the game. But alternatively, if you wanted to throw on the Cronin Mini Dot, since this is for a little bit of close to medium range gunplay, you definitely can. But no matter what, make sure you're tuning your optics for aim down sight speed and all the way over to far. While this Razorback might not be the best option when it comes to things like Al Mazrah and ranked play, Vondel and Ashika are so fast-paced, and this thing fits the bill perfectly. And with that, let's head on to our next loadout. For loadout number 2, we have the Taq-V Battle Rifle. In my personal opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of others, this thing is going to be the absolute meta in Season 5. Since the Cronin was nerfed heavily this season, we're looking for another thing that hits hard and has low recoil, and this is definitely it. For our first attachment, we're heading over to muzzles and throwing on the Seiken Tread 40, which is going to help us out with vertical and horizontal recoil. For the tunings on the muzzle, we're going to go all the way up to 0.8 for the recoil stabilization, and then over to 0.2 on the recoil control there on the bottom. Next, we're over to our barrel attachment, where we're gonna throw on the 18-inch Precision 6 barrel, which is gonna give us all the damage range and bullet velocity that we need. For our tunings on the barrel, we're going all the way up on the right, again, getting our recoil steadiness as high up as we can, and going all the way to the right to get our damage range high to make this thing almost hit scan. Our next attachment, we're heading over to underbarrels, and of course, throwing on the F-Tac Ripper, which is gonna help us with recoil and aiming stability. For the tunings on the Ripper, again, we're going all the way up for the recoil stabilization and all the way over to the right to get as much aiming stability as we possibly can. For our magazine, again, we want to get as many bullets in that magazine as possible, so we are throwing on the 50-round drum mag. I personally like to throw on a sight and have the aim OP, which again, I think is the best sight in the game, but a lot of people in the community like to run this thing with iron sights, especially for Vondel and Ashika Island. If you're gonna do that, head over to rear grips and throw on the Demo Clean Shot grip, which is gonna help you with sprint to fire time and ADS speed. For the tunings on the rear grip, we're going all the way up again towards recoil steadiness and all the way over to the right on aiming stability. This is going to be by far the best loadout this season, and you're going to see it a lot, so make sure it's in your loadout. Let's head over to our third loadout. For our third loadout, we've got a bit of an underrated weapon in the Kastov 7.62. This gun's been kind of under the radar lately, as it's been overshadowed by a lot of low recoil, fast fire rate weapons, but now that those guns have been nerfed, it's finally time for this gun to shine. For the first attachment, we're throwing on a muzzle, the Tempest GH50. This gun has a lot of vertical recoil, so we're quelling that a lot with this attachment. For the tunings on the muzzle, we're not going quite all the way up for our recoil stabilization, and on the bottom, we're going all the way over for aiming stability. Next, we're over to our barrel, where we're gonna throw on the Cast 10 barrel, which is gonna help us the most with damage range, bullet velocity, and even give us a little bit of recoil control. For the tunings on the barrel, we're going all the way up for our recoil steadiness and all the way over for our damage range, so we can get as much range on this thing as we possibly can. Next, we're heading over to rear grips, where we're throwing on the Demo X2 grip. This is going to help us out with recoil control and not give us too much problems with ADS time. As you do for most of these recoil attachments, again for the tuning, we're going all the way up on recoil steadiness, and we're going all the way over on aiming idle stability. For our next attachment, we've got the 40-round mag. As always, you want to get as many bullets in there as possible, but trust me, with as much damage as this thing does, you don't need that many. And finally, over to our optic, we are throwing on something a little different than the aim OP, and I promise it's not just because it looks cool. We're throwing on the SZ Recharge optic, which I think is the best for the Kastov. I promise you guys are going to enjoy this class this season, and you definitely need to try it out if you're a fan of high damage weapons. That being said, let's head on to our next loadout. For our fourth loadout, we have another absolute beam assault rifle, the M13B. This is another gun that's been kind of off meta in recent seasons, but with the buffs and nerfs to other guns, this is finally its chance to shine. For our first attachment, we're over to muzzles, where we're throwing on the Harbinger D20 silencer. Now, since the M13 does not have very much recoil, we're throwing on a suppressor and not something like the Seiken Tread to give us a little bit more damage range and bullet velocity. For the tunings on the muzzle, we are going to positive 0.55 on both the left and the bottom. For our next attachment, we're heading up to barrels, where we're throwing on the 14-inch barrel, which is of course going to help us the most with bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil control. For the tunings on the barrel, we're going all the way up for our recoil steadiness, but we're not going all the way over for our damage range, since we have that silencer on there, and that'll give us a little bit faster ADS time. You guys see what I'm thinking here? Yeah. Of course, for our next attachment, we're heading under barrels and throwing on the F-Tac Ripper, which again is going to help us a lot with our stability and recoil control. For the F-Tac Ripper, again, since this gun doesn't have too much recoil, we're not going all the way up for recoil stabilization, only going to 0.5, but we're going to go all the way over for aiming stability to make sure we're keeping that thing online. Our next attachment is going to be our magazine, when we're throwing on these 60-round mags. This gun has a lot of fire rates, so we're going to make sure we have as many bullets in our magazine as we possibly can. And last but not least, we're up to optics, where we're again going to throw on the aim OP. Alternatively, again, since this is going to be more for Vondel and Ashika, you can throw on the Chrono Mini Pro if you choose. I know a lot of you guys are going to be missing that Lockman 5.56 since it was nerfed in Season 5's update, but this thing is going to be very similar in terms of low recoil and tons of damage. And with that, let's head on to our final loadout of the video. For our fifth and final best loadout for Season 5, I have decided after a lot of deliberation to finally throw in the M4. Yes, I do think this M4 is finally part of the meta now that a lot of other guns have been buffed and nerfed. I don't think this M4 has been touched since it was put into Warzone 2 initially, but it has been good the entire time. For our first attachment, we're heading over to muzzle and throwing on the Harbinger D20. Again, this gun does not have too much recoil, so we don't need something like the Seiken Tread, but this is still going to help us out with bullet velocity, recoil smoothness, and damage range. For the tunings on our muzzle, again, we're not going all the way up on the recoil smoothness, so we can get a little bit more ADS speed, and since this gun does like to bounce around a lot, I'm not going all the way over on bullet velocity, so we get a little bit more aiming stability as well. Next, we're over to the barrel, where we're throwing on the High Tower 20-inch barrel. Again, gonna be the best for recoil control, damage range, and bullet velocity. For the tunings on the barrel, I decided that we're gonna go all the way up on the recoil steadiness and all the way over on damage range. Again, helping out, getting as much range as we can in this gun. Then over to the underbarrel. These are starting to seem pretty familiar, aren't they? We're throwing on the F-Tac Ripper underbarrel, again, to help out our aiming stability and our recoil steadiness. For the F-Tac Ripper's tuning, here is where I'm not gonna go all the way up on recoil stabilization, only going to 0.55. But we are going to go all the way over to the right on aiming stability on the bottom. Then our next attachment will be the magazine, where we're going to throw in the 60-round mag, so we can, again, get as many bullets in our magazine as possible before reloading. And for our last attachment, over to optics, we're throwing on the aim OP. Again, probably one of the best sights in the game, but alternatively, again, you could throw on the Chrono Mini Pro if you'd like. There is no weapon in Warzone that is more tried and true than the M4. Give this M4 a try. Before we go here, I do want to give you guys two honorable mentions that I decided not to include in my top 5, the first of which being the ISO Hemlock, which has again been a mainstay in the meta for a while now. There's absolutely no reason why you could not run this ISO Hemlock still, and definitely in Vondel and Ashika Island. For our last honorable mention, I'm going to throw in the Taq-56, which is another gun that has seen the meta in the past. While it has a few problems, this thing is of course still a beam and can definitely get the job done in both Al Mazrah and in Ashika and Vondel. And that is my top 5 best long-range options in Season 5 of Warzone. Definitely make sure to give all of these loadouts a try, and if you enjoy any of them, let me know down in the comments below which one was your favorite. And if you enjoyed a video like this, make sure you're smashing that like button so I know to make more of these in the future. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you guys so much. Love y'all, and we will see you in the next video.